So, ladies and gentlemen, in keeping with my Zelda theme marathon of what I've been playing lately, I decided to just do a little blog here on playing Zelda 2: Link's Adventure once again. The Adventure of Link. It's the Adventure of Link, I believe. Anyway, this game is a lot different than the first game. Now, there's some similarities, but they're few and far between. So I'm going to just take a moment here and just blog. If anybody's interested in, hearing me ramble on about Zelda 2, then, well, stick with this video and you'll hear, plenty of Zelda 2 and what I thought about it and what I thought about it like 10, 11 years after playing it through last. Does it hold up? Did it ever hold up? What did I even think of it the first time through? Well, here we go. So anyway, I felt like I had more problems playing this game again, which is kind of weird. You would think myself from 11 years ago would be a worse game player than the one today. You would think I'd be more experienced and all that, but fact of the matter is, I guess my gaming prowess is kind of weakened, because I wasn't working all the time. I had more time for games back then, and I guess you sort of lose your skills of sorts a bit. That's not to say that I totally suck, but I think I used to be better at games than I am now. So it's kind of sad that I'm actually worse than I was when I was younger because with age should come expertise, but I guess not. Probably the first thing you'll notice about this game is the overworld. Now, the overworld in the first Zelda game looked exactly like it does when you go into a dungeon or into a cave. That's not the fact of the matter here in this game. Um, this time you get this weird thing where they're trying to emulate Final Fantasy or Dragon Warrior, I think, to be more specific. I think they were really going for a Dragon Warrior look. And, I didn't look it up before I did this video, but I think that Dragon Warrior was released before this game. So, I think that's where they were drawing their influences from the Dragon Warrior series, and not only just the overworld, but the experience point system is definitely something from Final Fantasy or Dragon Warrior. And you'll notice right away that that's quite different than the first game. The first game, you was pretty much just going around hacking and slashing, looking for secrets, looking for the next dungeon. Now, there's secrets in this game. There's a lot, and there's some of that classic Zelda cryptic shit. Of course, it's presented in a different way, but it seems new and fresh at times, such as a town being hidden underneath grass. Go fucking figure. You chop away, a couple of blades of grass, and there's a fucking town. Can you imagine that in real life? You're, just going through grass and you chop a couple of strands away and there's a fucking town there. There's also palaces in this game, which is a lot different. Instead of dungeons, we have palaces. Now, you descend into these palaces via an elevator. Now, there's elevators in Zelda times. Is a little bit unusual, but yeah, I don't know if they're electronic or not, but I mean, it's a little bit odd. I always find that a little bit odd using elevators to navigate the dungeon as opposed to ladders, because Zelda's supposed to have that medieval feel, and elevators kind of take away from that in a way. There's not, a sense of that medieval feeling when you're, navigating a dungeon with elevators. But back to the overworld. The overworld is not very good looking. It looks worse than in Dragon Warrior or Final Fantasy. You know, everything just looks blocky. Link is obscenely huge. He's bigger than the towns, bigger than the trees. You know, and I don't know. Apparently, since the grass is hiding a town, he's bigger than the grass. But the grass would have to be tall grass because it's hiding a fucking town. But the scaling is all off. And, you know, I guess we kind of have to forgive it. It's the NES, an early NES game. Um, you know, but the game's fun, though. I have to say that. And before I talk about the entertainment value, we'll talk about the experience point system. So basically, and how it relates to the overworld. So basically, you're walking around the overworld, getting to where you need to be. And I feel like this game gives you a better sense of direction than the first game. Now, the first game is, you know, we all say it's perfect and all that, and it's free roaming, and you could do what you want in that game. Some people have compared it to Grand Theft Auto, it being the Grand Theft Auto of Zeldas, but you could get yourself into a lot of fucking trouble in this game, in the first game, because you could go into the third dungeon first. That's a problem, because the third dungeon is considerably harder than the first. And back then, when you know we weren't so accustomed to video games and how they work, you know, you would see that it's the third dungeon. It's indicated. It says, you know, L3 for level 3, but you know you may not even be paying. You might not even be paying attention. I don't know. I think I'm just a big fan of in games when you just know which one you're supposed to do first, and you know they give you a sense of direction. And Zelda 2 does that. There's people telling you where to go in the towns, what to do, things with secrets and stuff, so you know you never feel completely lost. Now some of the townspeople are fucking worthless, and some of them turn into bats by talking to them. And yeah, you go into these towns, and you'll notice the 2D perspective immediately when you enter a battle or you go into a town. Let's talk about the battles. So when you're walking around the overworld, it's a lot like Final Fantasy. You know, you engage an enemy. You'll see enemies starting to run around the screen at random. One is a moblin, and the other one is a little jelly thing, which is from Dragon Warrior, I think. Aren't those guys originally from Dragon Warrior? Unless this game came out first, I don't fucking know. But you enter into these battles, and you're in a 2D perspective, which is new. And I have to say, you know, Link's, character model, his sprite is detailed. It really is, and I think it looks pretty fucking good. Some people have talked about not liking the graphics in this game, not caring for the art style. I particularly like it from the 2D perspective. I think there's nothing wrong with it. There's just some of the combat elements are a bit off. Um, you know, um, I was never able to figure out how to beat the Tektites. I don't think you can fucking beat those spider things. And some of the battles could be a bit awkward, especially when you enter into like a palace and you have to fight the Iron Knuckles, the knights, which were called Dark Nuts in the first game. But anyway, the Dark Nuts or the Iron Knuckle, whatever you want to fucking call them, they are awkward as shit to fucking fight. You have to do this awkward jumping attack with your sword. You have to like jump into them and strike with your sword, and I don't know. You know, you might be thinking it's a tough enemy. You have to go about it in a unique way. I just think it feels off to fight these things, and there's a lot of them. And you know, this jumping strike. You know, I had forgotten how to defeat them when I replayed this game. So I was like fighting them by trying to duck with my shield and then come up and stab. And while that does work, that is not the strategy you're supposed to be using here. You have to use the jump strike. Now you'll notice when you go into a battle or you know you defeat one of these enemies, you'll get experience points, and you know you'll start leveling up, and you know you have an attack, magic, and health. And when you get to the end of the amount of experience points you're supposed to obtain, you will go to the next level. So, but it is always, you don't get to pick like certain games. It's just in a certain order. So I believe the order is health, magic, and then attack. Um, and you'll need to do this. You'll need to level up before you start going into the later levels, especially Death Mountain, which is a pain in the fucking ass if you're not leveled up. Now, I had a much easier time with Death Mountain this time around because I sucked more, so I had to keep replaying certain palaces, and that meant more opportunity to hone my skills and get more experience points. So I was more leveled up than I was last time. Because I had to, get stronger to be able to fucking beat these palaces because I'm not as good as I used to be, not as skilled. Now, when you're on the overworld, and as I mentioned before, the moblins and the gel things are running around. I notice when you hit the gel guys, your battle scenario is a lot easier than if you hit the moblin. You hit the moblin, and you'll get tougher enemies. You might even get certain enemies that take away your experience points, like these fucking annoying birds that just swoop in. And I swear to God, it doesn't matter how, good you think you are with your timing with the sword, they always fucking hit you. Just once in a while you'll get lucky and be able to stab a couple of them before they take away pretty much all your fucking experience points. And there's a couple of enemies like this in the game, including these fucking weird dragon heads that are in most of the palaces that do this little swooping fashion. And those are annoying as fuck. And that brings me to another part in this game. You get knocked back when you get hit by enemies. Oh no. No. This pissed me off during my first playthrough, and having less patience as an adult, it just fucking annoys me to no end. The backwards falling shit is annoying as fuck, and they always put it in a part where they know you're gonna get hit, and they know there's a pitfall nearby. There are sections in this game where you have to cross bridges with gaps. And there's these little bonefish that are like from soup that would end up in like Super Mario World later on. And these fucking fish jump up at the same time that you're jumping to cross the gaps in the bridges, and they hit you, you get knocked back, you fall into the water, and that's it, you're dead. There's no swimming in this game. You fall into the water, and you're fucking dead. So that's something new that wasn't in the previous games. Pitfalls. For the first time ever, there's pitfalls. You could fall into shit and you'll fucking instantly die. And that wouldn't be so bad if it wasn't for this. When you die, you go back to the beginning of the game. Well, you don't lose everything. You still have your inventory and shit. But you gotta go back to where you start, which is Princess Zelda's castle. And it's like right at the top of the map. So you have to fucking go through the same path, and you're going to get so well acquainted with the overworld, because you're going to see it fucking 1,000 times. Because when you die, you're going to be walking through the same shit. Now, this is very annoying, before you get the hammer. Which is at Death Mountain. Before you get the hammer, you're going to have to stroll through caves. You're going to have to navigate the overworld the long way. And you know how fucking annoying that is? It's very fucking annoying! There is nothing worse than seeing the same thing over and over again. You're going to think you're in a fucking Flintstones cartoon, because you're seeing the same fucking shit over and over again, just like the Flintstones with the fucking background that repeats. It's the same thing every single time you play through. And you're going to have to do this even when you save the game. You're going to go right back to the beginning. And this occurs until you reach the last palace. The other thing that makes this fucking hard is that you only get 3 lives. and you can still build up your health. But there's some enemies that take away a shitload of health. And this is especially annoying if you have a tough boss to fight. If you have a tough boss to fight, you're going to have to keep going back to the palace, navigating the whole thing. You know, of course, all the doors that you open with the keys is still done, but, you know, to get to the boss, you're going to have to fucking fight through iron knuckles and these weird fucking, I don't know what they are. They're so fucking weird looking. They creep me the fuck out. They're like these things that just, they bounce and jump and they keep coming and coming until you reach the edge of the screen, but there's like an infinite amount of them. And I don't know if they're like goats or pigs or something like that, but they keep on fucking coming. And I just always was creeped out by the pattern of these guys and the way how they look. They and the way how they bounce, they feel so like cardboard cutouts coming at you, but they're kind of like, they're just fucking creepy as hell. You know, but this is annoying. You have to go through this shit every time you die, and then you gotta go back. And I swear to God, the Palace 5 boss, which is actually an exclusive in the US, I don't think he's in the Japanese version. The dude with the ball and chain, the fucking mace, his pattern is so fucking annoying. You have to like jump towards him, jump away, then walk back and stab him, then quickly jump away again. And you gotta get your timing dead set, because this motherfucker takes away like 2-3 bars, 2.5 bars of your health. He is like the most devastating boss in the game, the most devastating enemy in the game. And it's just like obscene how many times I had to go back before I eventually beat him by mastering the pattern. But in a way, I kind of like that challenge. It feels very old school. Like, you know, there's a lot of bosses in video games where you get lazy and, you know, you just take unnecessary hits until you just beat them. And I'm guilty of that. But no, in this game, it's like, no, you have to do it the right way. There's no fucking around. And I sort of appreciate that approach. There's no easy way out of this game. You got to do it the right way. You got to play this game the way it was intended to be played. And I can appreciate that. These bosses are not wishy-washy. They're fucking tough as shit. And especially that boss. You know, and like I said, I can really appreciate what they were going for here. You know, you have to play this game, you know, and you have to play it at the difficulty that it was intended. You can't just weasel your way out of it. So I like that part of it. Now, the thing is also, starting again at the beginning of the game is your experience points gets reset. And this is so annoying, because throughout the game you find these P bags, which are experience point bags, and you're so happy when you find them, because that means you don't have to go around fighting every enemy in creation just to level up. You could get these point bags, but you lose, and you gotta start all over. Now, there are extra lives, but they appear at random. You gotta walk to the right part of the screen. There's so much hidden shit. It's like that. You're walking on the overworld, and all of a sudden you'll end up in the battle terrain. But sometimes it's like a heart container, or, you know, or something like that. It won't always be enemies, which is good, but, you know, it is very random. And you have to walk to every part of the screen. And, you know, that part I didn't like as much as the previous Zelda, where you would just, you know, burn bushes and just, you know, generally explore and bomb stuff. And that's something that's not in this game. There's no bombs. No, there's not. Now, there's a bunch of spells. Some of them you're not going to use. Some of them you will. Some of them take away a lot of magic, like turning into a fairy. One of my favorite spells, of course, is the life one, because you're going to fucking need it. Shield and life. Those are your two best friends in this game. If you don't want to constantly die, you're going to have to always do the shield every single time you enter into a battle screen. And you're going to have to keep your health spell handy. Because I recommend that when you get to 2 bars of health, use that life spell. When you get it, because you're going to end up fighting enemies that are going to take away full bars of health. So go ahead. Fucking use the fucking spell. You're going to need it. Now, there's annoying parts in this game. I mentioned crossing bridges and getting knocked back and shit. And that is so annoying. There's one part in a certain palace where those fucking flying heads come at you. And you're trying to jump to the bridge, but they'll knock you back and you'll fall into the lava. Again, beyond fucked up. Another thing that's creepy in this game, there's these little bear heads that come out of fucking nowhere and start shooting like fire at you. And I'm like, the fuck? Like, where the fuck did they come up with the idea for some of these enemies? Some of them are like fucking freaky. It's just a disembodied bear's head, if that's what it's supposed to be. Now, speaking of not being able to avoid taking hits in this game, there's some things that are just fucking absurd. Like, there's one part in the palace where there's these statues that shoot fireballs at you, kind of like the statues in the first game, except they're not on the floor, they're up on the walls now, and they're just as annoying. That was a very annoying part of the first game. I didn't like that, because they had you running around the screen like a nut trying to dodge that shit, and it was fucking impossible. In this game, I swear to God, there's this point where, like, the fireballs are shooting diagonally, and you have to, like, walk to the right part of the screen. There's, like, no way of not getting hit. There's no way to time that shit. And speaking of no way of timing it, shit, there's this part in the game when, before you go to the 6th palace, and you play the flute between the rocks. There's this part, and there's like 3 screens of this. There's a big fence with those fucking lizards, and they're throwing rocks at you. Now, I remember the first time I played through this game, I remember that I was impressed with myself because I managed to make it to the edge of the screen without getting hit once. I think that was like for the first screen of it, though. Remember, there's 3 of them. This time I'm getting hit like a motherfucker. I swear to God, there's no way to time it. There isn't. They're just throwing rocks, and there's like 3, 4 rocks at a time. You're like, whoa, fuck! There's no way to get around that shit. And it's like, I don't get having that in games. You know, everything should be dodgeable, I guess, unless it's like something that you can prevent. But you can't prevent this shit. There's shit flying everywhere. How the fuck are you supposed to get around it? You can't. You try to jump through it, you try to wait. No, if you wait, you get hit by more rocks. They keep fucking coming, and it's like, it's a really weird looking screen, too. I can't even stress that enough. There's a lot of bizarre looking shit in this game. Those things that fucking march towards you, the bear heads shooting the fucking fireballs, and the lizards be hiding behind the fence with the black background. I don't know, just the way it looks in the 8-bit way, it just looks a bit unsettling is all I'm saying. I don't, really know what to make of it. It just, I don't know, it's a little bit odd to me. Anyway, there's a lot of iconic shit in this game, and I just love it. I really do. A lot of people hate this game, and I can see why. There's a lot of difficulty in it, but the first game is probably even more difficult. Now, I understand that people don't like the experience points. They didn't come to play Final Fantasy. They came to play Zelda. But still, I really like this game. I like the perspective. I think it's refreshing. After doing the overworld view for the whole game, for the first game, it's nice to come to the second game and try something different. You got a variety of spells, and, the gameplay never feels boring. There's some repetition, but there's always like new environments and stuff, and exploring the map I don't know. Sometimes the map is a little bit more exciting than the first game. There's just more to it, and it's just an interesting game. And there's also a lot of like cool stuff too. Like there's invisible enemies at one point in the game. You walk into a town and you just get fucking killed, and you're like, the fuck? And then you realize that the enemies are invisible, and you need an item to be able to see them. And I thought that was actually a pretty interesting feature in this game. There's a lot of like mysterious stuff in it, and it's like it really lends itself to the overall feel of being an adventure. You go out on an adventure in real life, and you're going into the unknown. You don't know every part of the terrain out there, and neither does Link. And you get to explore this adventure together, and you feel really in the game, and it's challenging, and it really feels like a true quest, and that is something I could really appreciate. They went for something different, and I think for the most part they succeeded. Most people are not going to like it because it seems a lot different. Now you think to now, and you think of all the overworld, top-down views for all the Zelda games, and that's what you're used to. But back then there were only two Zelda games at the time, so it didn't feel as weird. So I think it's a pretty good game. I recommend it to anybody who's open-minded and enjoys a good game and doesn't need it to be exactly like the others. So yeah, overall, I think this is a really good game. I personally myself think it's a classic. I give it like a 10 out of 10 because it's iconic. There's a lot of cool shit and it's very memorable. Are there things in the first game I like better? Yes. Are there things I like better in the second game over the first? Yes. And a lot of those elements would be shared in later games. So I was happy about that. It's just, a lot of people just didn't enjoy the change, and that's pretty much all there is to it. Well, anyway, that's all I got to say about this game. It's 27 minutes of me rambling on about this game. And so, I don't do game footage that much on this channel. I just rather fucking talk about the game and give my thoughts. It's just how I am. But, yeah, so there you go. Haven't played the game yet? I think you should.